A village girl sacrifices her entire life to help the man she loves, only to be heartlessly rejected when he achieves wealth. The first light of dawn stretched gently over the small village of Makini, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and gold. Aminata stirred from her narrow mat, her body aching from another night of sleep on the hard floor. She rubbed her eyes and looked around her tiny mud hut. The walls were simple, rough, but clean. The floor was swept, and the smell of fresh earth mingled with the faint sweetness of the oranges stacked neatly in a corner. Today, like every day, her life would be measured in steps and kubas, each step a small act of hope. She rose slowly, letting the cool morning air brush against her skin. Her feet were already calloused from years of walking barefoot along the dusty roads. She tightened the straps of her worn basket, arranging the oranges so carefully that not a single one wobbled. Every fruit carried more than just color and flavor. It carried her dreams, her sacrifice, and her love for a boy named Jabari. Could one girl's hope really change the world for someone else? She wondered silently, as her hands lingered over the bright orange fruits. Aminata stepped outside, and the village came alive around her. Smoke spiraled gently from cooking fires, roosters crowed insistently, and children's laughter echoed from the small clay huts. She greeted the neighbors with a soft smile, a smile that seemed to light even the dreariest corners of her small village. She walked steadily down the narrow path, her bare feet pressing into the cool dirt. 5 miles would take her to the main road where the city-bound buses passed, but she did not mind. She had walked this path for years, and each step felt like a small promise. A promise to herself, to her family, and to the boy whose dreams she had made her own. As she moved along, her mind drifted briefly to Jabari. She remembered the first time she had seen him struggle to lift a basket of yams, his brows furrowed with determination, his eyes glinting with hope. He doesn't even know how much he means to me, she thought, her chest tightening at the memory. Her hands tightened on the basket straps, and she felt a surge of purpose. Every coin she earned today, every smile she shared, every step she took was part of something bigger, something she believed would matter someday, somehow. The sun rose higher, warming her shoulders, and the village path stretched endlessly ahead. Sweat prickled her skin, dust clung to her feet, and yet she kept walking, refusing to slow. She knew the world beyond her village would be harsh, but she had already learned resilience. She had already learned that hope could shine brightest in the most humble hearts. When she finally reached the main road, she set down her basket and arranged the oranges once more, ready for the day's trade. Her hands were yellow from the peel, her body tired, yet her spirit was unbroken. Aminata smiled, quietly proud of herself, though no one else might notice. And in that small, quiet triumph, she carried a truth stronger than any hardship. That selfless effort, no matter how small, could light the darkest path. Even the smallest hands can hold the weight of great dreams. The old mango tree stood tall at the edge of the village, its wide branches stretching toward the sky like protective arms. Beneath its shade, Aminata and Jabari had spent countless afternoons sharing secrets, laughter, and dreams too big for their small village. Today, as the sun filtered through the leaves, Aminata remembered those moments with a bittersweet ache. She ran her fingers along the rough bark, tracing the initials they had carved so many years ago, worn now by rain and time. "Do you think we'll ever leave this village?" Jabari had asked one day, his eyes fixed on the horizon. Aminata had smiled, the warmth in her chest matching the golden sunlight around them. "One day," she had whispered, "we'll see the world. I believe in you, Jabari." That belief had been simple, quiet, yet powerful. "I never knew my heart could feel so full for someone else," she thought, a soft flutter in her chest reminding her of love's first spark. They had spent their childhood side by side, climbing trees, running through fields, sharing dreams about the future while the village hummed around them. Jabari had always been different from the other boys. Determined, ambitious, restless. He would talk about leaving for the city, about building a life that stretched beyond the limits of their dusty roads and small huts. Aminata listened, captivated. believing in his dreams as if they were her own. She would sit quietly, her hands stained yellow from peeling oranges, imagining the day he would return to take her with him. The mango tree had witnessed it all. The whispered confessions, the shared fears, the laughter that seemed to echo forever. "I will make something of myself," Jabari had said, his voice full of fire. Aminata had nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. "And I will be here, cheering for you," she had promised. She didn't know that those simple words, spoken with all her heart, would become a foundation for sacrifices she would make later in life. They had imagined a future together, a life where dreams were bigger than the village, where love was enough to carry them through hardships. Under the warm afternoon sun, they had made promises that felt eternal. "No matter where we go, we'll remember this place," Jabari said once, leaning against the trunk. Aminata's eyes glistened. "I will never forget him, no matter what happens," she thought. Those afternoons under the mango tree were more than childhood memories. They were the beginning of a love that would shape everything she would do in the years to come. As Aminata looked back on those moments, she realized how precious and fleeting innocence could be, how hope and love were first learned in the simplest of places. The tree stood silently, a witness to their dreams, to the bond that had once felt unbreakable. And though the world would change, and lives would be broken, the lessons of that friendship remained clear. True love is not measured by distance, but by the strength of faith and memory. The evening air was heavy with silence as Aminata sat outside her hut, sorting oranges under the fading light. Jabari stood a few steps away, his shoulders slumped, his confident voice replaced by a tired sigh. For the first time, his dreams sounded fragile. He spoke slowly, explaining how the city was close yet impossibly far. Bus fare, food, shelter, and connections all cost more than he had ever managed to save. His words trembled, and his eyes avoided hers, as if ashamed to admit defeat. Aminata listened without interrupting. Her heart tightened with every sentence. She had always seen Jabari as strong, unbreakable, yet now he looked like a boy trapped between hope and fear. "Maybe this dream isn't meant for me," he finally said, forcing a weak smile. Aminata felt something shift inside her. How could she let his dream die when she believed in it so deeply? If I don't help him now, will he ever forgive himself? She stood up and walked into her hut, her steps slow and heavy. In the corner sat a small metal box, scratched and dented from years of use. Inside were her life savings, coins earned from countless early mornings, long walks, and tired nights. Money she had planned to use for her family, for her own future, for a life that might one day be easier. She opened the box, listening to the familiar clink of coins, each sound echoing like a heartbeat. "This is everything I have," she thought, her hands trembling slightly. Aminata returned outside and placed the box in Jabari's hands. He stared at it in disbelief. This is too much," he whispered, his voice cracking. She shook her head gently. "It's not too much if it helps you become who you're meant to be." Tears welled in his eyes as he looked at her, overwhelmed by her sacrifice. "I will repay you. I promise," he said quickly. Aminata smiled softly, though her chest ached. "I don't need repayment," she replied. "Just don't forget where you came from." The night grew quiet around them. The stars shimmered faintly above, unaware of the promise being sealed below. Jabari held the box tightly, his gratitude raw and sincere. Aminata watched him, feeling both proud and afraid. She had just given away everything she owned, not knowing what the future would demand in return. Was love supposed to hurt this much? As Jabari walked away, his dreams suddenly lighter, Aminata remained standing there, her heart heavy yet hopeful. She believed that sacrifice was the purest form of love, that giving could never be wasted if it helped someone rise. She did not know then that some sacrifices would be forgotten, and some hearts would change. True sacrifice is giving without knowing whether your love will be returned. The city greeted Jabari with noise, speed, and indifference. Tall buildings rose like giants around him, and the air buzzed with engines, voices, and ambition. His first nights were restless, spent on a thin mattress in a crowded room, clutching his small bag as if it were the only proof that he belonged there. Every morning, he reminded himself why he had come, because someone had believed in him enough to give everything. I cannot fail now, he told himself, pushing past exhaustion and fear. First, life was harsh. Jabari took any work he could find. Cleaning, running errands, lifting heavy loads under the burning sun. Hunger followed him like a shadow, and loneliness pressed hard against his chest. Yet his determination was strong. He worked longer hours than others, spoke carefully, and learned quickly. Slowly, people began to notice him. One day, an opportunity appeared when he was hired as a driver for Chief Aonquil, a powerful man whose name commanded respect throughout the city. Driving through wide streets and iron gates, Jabari caught glimpses of a world far removed from his village. He watched rich families laugh freely, their worries hidden behind luxury. He started dressing better, speaking differently, moving with confidence he had never known. Each day, his old life felt farther away, like a fading memory. Letters from Aminata arrived, filled with warmth and encouragement, but he read them quickly, tucking them away before anyone could see. Why did her simple words suddenly feel so heavy? Then there was Shakira, the chief's daughter. She moved with grace, her laughter light and effortless. She noticed Jabari not as a poor village boy, but as a man rising in the world. Her compliments fed his pride. Her attention reshaped his sense of worth. He began to imagine a future polished with wealth and status, a future where his past felt inconvenient and small. If I become someone important, will my old life still matter? As weeks turned into months, Jabari's climb accelerated. He earned trust, gained favors, and learned how power worked in the city. With every step forward, Aminata's sacrifices slipped quietly into the background. Her face, once so familiar, appeared less often in his thoughts. The city had taught him a dangerous lesson, that success could make a person forget who held them up when they were falling. The lights of the city shone brightly that night as Jabari looked out from the gates of the chief's house, his reflection staring back at him, almost unrecognizable. He had gained opportunity, comfort, and attention. But at what cost? When ambition grows faster than gratitude, love is the first thing left behind. Every week, Aminata waited for the postman as if he carried her heartbeat in his bag. She would stand by the dusty road, her orange basket set aside, her eyes searching the distance. When a letter finally arrived, she held it gently, almost afraid to open it. Jabari's handwriting was familiar, yet something about it had changed. The words were fewer now, shorter, and colder. Where there were once stories and promises, there were now excuses and silence. She read each letter slowly, trying to find the warmth she remembered. "Work is busy," one said. "I am fine," said another. No questions about her health, no concern for the long walks she still made each morning, no mention of the sacrifices she continued to make. Still, Aminata smiled after reading, convincing herself that distance was the reason, not his heart. Maybe he is just tired. Maybe tomorrow he will write more, she told herself, folding the paper carefully as if protecting it could protect her hope. Despite the growing emptiness in his words, Aminata continued sending money. Each coin she wrapped was earned with aching feet and burning hands. She skipped meals, wore the same worn clothes, and ignored her own needs so Jabari would not struggle. She believed that love meant patience, that loyalty meant enduring pain quietly. But deep inside, a small ache began to grow, whispering doubts she refused to listen to. How long could love survive without kindness? In the city, Jabari read her letters quickly, his face tightening with discomfort. He no longer shared them with anyone, afraid that her simple village words would expose his past. Her sacrifices reminded him of who he had been, and shame crept into his heart. He wrote back less, choosing silence over honesty. Each unanswered question, each delayed reply, became another quiet betrayal. Back in the village, nights grew lonelier for Aminata. She would sit by the dim lamp, rereading old letters filled with promises and laughter. Tears stained the paper as memories replayed in her mind. She wondered when the distance had begun. Was it the city, the money, or his own fear of looking back? Yet, she still believed because believing felt easier than accepting the truth. As weeks turned into months, Aminata felt something slipping away, though she could not name it. Her love remained strong, but it was no longer returned with the same care. The silence between them spoke louder than any words ever could. When love is met with silence, betrayal begins long before goodbye. The journey to the city drained every coin and every ounce of strength Aminata had left. The bus rattled endlessly, carrying her far from the quiet paths of her village into a world she barely recognized. She clutched her small cloth bag tightly, her heart pounding with nervous excitement. She had come to see Jabari, not to ask for anything, not to complain, but to congratulate him. After all, she had heard whispers of success, of a grand wedding. Shouldn't someone who gave everything be allowed one moment of pride? When Aminata reached the mansion gates, the sight before her stole her breath. Tall iron bars gleamed in the sunlight, flowers decorated the entrance, and music floated softly through the air. Guests in fine clothes laughed freely, their joy sharp against her worn dress and dusty shoes. She smoothed her scarf, took a deep breath, and stepped forward. "He will be happy to see me," she told herself, forcing courage into her trembling steps. Then Jabari appeared. He looked different, polished, confident, distant. For a brief second, their eyes met, and Aminata smiled with relief. But the smile never reached him. His expression hardened, panic flickering across his face. Before she could speak, he stepped back, as if she were a stranger who had crossed a forbidden line. "I don't know this woman," he said coldly to the guards, his voice sharp enough to cut. Aminata froze. The words echoed in her ears, louder than the music behind the gates. Shakira stepped forward, her elegant dress brushing the ground, her eyes filled with disdain. "How dare you come here?" she asked, her tone dripping with insult. Laughter rippled among the guests. Aminata tried to speak, tried to explain, but her voice failed her. In that moment, the city felt cruel and merciless. How could a man erase a lifetime with one sentence? The guards pushed her back toward the road. Aminata stumbled, humiliation burning her skin. Tears blurred her vision as the gates closed behind her, sealing Jabari's new life away from the girl who had built his old one. She stood there, small and forgotten, while celebration continued just a few steps away. "So this is what my sacrifice became," she thought, her heart shattering under the weight of truth. As Aminata turned away from the mansion, the city lights flickered like distant stars, cold and unreachable. Her love, her savings, her belief, all had been denied at the gate. Yet, even in that moment of complete humiliation, something inside her remained unbroken. Her dignity. A heart that sacrifices sincerely may be erased by others, but it is never erased by truth. The night swallowed Aminata whole. The city that had sparkled with promise just hours ago now felt cold, loud, and unforgiving. She walked aimlessly through unfamiliar streets, her feet aching, her heart heavier than her body could carry. The laughter from the mansion still echoed in her ears, mixing with the hum of traffic and distant music. With every step, her strength faded, until she finally sank down near a dimly lit roadside, hugging her knees to her chest. How does a person survive when everything they believed in collapses at once? Tears rolled silently down her face as strangers passed without noticing. Aminata felt invisible, erased not only from Jabari's life but from the world itself. She had no money, no place to go, and no idea what tomorrow would bring. "I gave him everything, and now I have nothing," she thought, her chest tightening with quiet despair. That was when a soft voice broke through the darkness. "My child, why are you sitting here alone?" An elderly woman stood before her, wrapped in a faded shawl, her eyes gentle yet strong. This was Mama Corey, a woman whose face carried the lines of hardship, but also the warmth of kindness. Aminata tried to answer, but her words came out as broken sobs. Mama Corey did not ask for explanations. She simply reached out her hand. "Come," she said softly. The night is too cold for tears. Mama Cory's home was small and simple, tucked away from the noise of the city. She offered Aminata water, then warm porridge, watching quietly as the girl ate with trembling hands. The room smelled of herbs and old wood, comforting in its simplicity. For the first time since arriving in the city, Aminata felt safe enough to breathe. As Aminata shared her story in fragments, Mama Cory listened without judgment. She nodded slowly, as if she had heard many such stories before. "The city can be cruel," she said gently, "but it does not get to decide your worth." Those words settled deep in Aminata's heart, soothing wounds she didn't know how to name. That night, Aminata lay on a thin mat, staring at the ceiling. The pain was still there, sharp and real, but it no longer felt endless. In the kindness of a stranger, she found something she thought she had lost forever: a reason to keep going. Sometimes, hope arrives not as a miracle, but as a kind hand in the dark. Morning arrived quietly at Mama Cory's home, but fate had already begun moving its pieces. Through a small connection, Aminata was offered work as a maid in one of the grand houses near the city's heart. She accepted without hesitation. Work meant survival. It meant dignity. She tied her scarf tightly, straightened her worn dress, and followed the path she never imagined she would walk. She did not know where the road would lead, only that she had no choice but to keep moving forward. When Aminata stepped through the gates of the mansion, her breath caught. The marble floors, tall pillars, and shining windows felt unreal. This place was worlds away from her village hut. She lowered her eyes, focused on her duties, unaware that destiny had brought her back to the very man who had erased her. "I will work quietly and leave no trace," she told herself, unaware of the storm waiting inside those walls. The first time Jabari saw her, his world stopped. She stood near the corridor, holding a tray, her face calm but changed by pain. For a moment, he thought his eyes were deceiving him. Then fear tightened his chest. This was the woman he had denied at the gate, the woman who knew his past. Aminata kept her gaze lowered, pretending not to recognize him, though her heart pounded violently. How could life be so cruel and precise at the same time? Days passed, and Aminata worked silently. She cleaned, cooked, and moved through the house like a shadow. Shakira barely noticed her, lost in her luxury and pride. But Jabari noticed everything. Every step Aminata took reminded him of who he once was. Her quiet strength, her humility, her lowered eyes. It all haunted him. Guilt followed him from room to room, heavier than any chain. "She is here because of me, and I destroyed her," his conscience whispered relentlessly. Aminata felt his presence too. She sensed his fear, his unease, yet she did not confront him. She had learned that survival sometimes meant silence. Each day, she swallowed her pain and focused on her work, refusing to let him see her weakness. She was no longer the girl under the mango tree. She was a woman who had been broken and forced to rebuild herself from ashes. At night, Jabari lay awake, tormented. The mansion that once symbolized success now felt like a prison. Aminata's quiet footsteps echoed louder than accusations. He feared exposure, judgment, and the truth he had buried so deeply. The power he had gained could not silence his guilt. In that house of wealth and pride, roles had reversed. The one who sacrificed stood with dignity, while the one who erased her trembled in fear. Life has a way of returning our choices to us, dressed in consequences. The corridor was quiet when Jabari finally stopped Aminata. The house was asleep, the lights dim, and the silence felt heavy with everything left unsaid. Aminata stood still, her hands clasped in front of her, her eyes lowered out of habit, not fear. Jabari's voice trembled as he spoke her name, a name he had once denied in front of strangers. Hearing it now felt strange, almost painful. "I never thought you would end up here," he said softly, glancing around as if the walls themselves might be listening. He spoke quickly, nervously, explaining how complicated his life had become, how Shakira would never understand, how society would never accept the truth. His words were careful, selfish, and calculated. Then came the proposal, quiet, shameful, and cruel. He wanted Aminata to stay close, hidden, silent. A secret. Aminata slowly lifted her eyes and looked at him for the first time. The man standing before her was not the boy from under the mango tree. His eyes held fear, not love. Power, not sincerity. How could someone who once owed her everything now offer her nothing but secrecy? Is this what my sacrifice was worth? I will take care of you, Jabari said, lowering his voice. You will never struggle again. Just stay quiet. His words fell like poison between them. In that moment, something inside Aminata hardened. The pain that had lived in her chest for so long transformed into strength. No, she said, her voice calm but firm. The word echoed louder than any scream. Jabari froze, stunned. She straightened her back, her dignity standing taller than the mansion walls around them. I did not give you my life to become your shame, she continued. I lost everything believing in you, but I will not lose myself. Anger flashed across Jabari's face, followed by desperation. He warned her, tried to scare her, reminding her of her position, her poverty, her dependence. But Aminata did not flinch. She had already survived humiliation, hunger, and betrayal. What more could he take from her? Courage filled the space where fear once lived. You erased me once, she said quietly. You will never do it again. She turned and walked away, leaving Jabari alone with the truth he could no longer control. His power meant nothing in that moment. His wealth could not buy silence. As Aminata disappeared down the corridor, her steps steady and sure, the balance finally shifted. The girl who once sacrificed everything had found her voice, and the man who erased her now stood exposed before his own conscience. Self-respect is the one thing no betrayal can take away. The morning air inside the mansion was tense, thick with whispers and sharp glances. Aminata felt it the moment she stepped into the hall. The servants avoided her eyes, their movements hurried, fearful. Before she could ask a single question, Shakira's voice rang out, cold and commanding, calling her name. Aminata's heart tightened as she followed the sound, every step heavier than the last. Shakira stood in the center of the room, her posture proud, her eyes burning with accusation. Jabari stood beside her, silent, his gaze fixed on the floor. This girl, Shakira said sharply, pointing at Aminata, has been trying to seduce my husband. The words struck like a slap. Laughter and gasps filled the room. Aminata felt the ground shift beneath her feet. How easily lies could turn into weapons. That is not true, Aminata said, her voice trembling but clear. She tried to explain, to speak of the past, of sacrifices, of promises broken. But Shakira's face hardened further. Enough, she snapped. I gave you shelter and work, and this is how you repay me? Jabari remained silent, his silence louder than any accusation. So this is how he protects himself, Aminata thought, her chest burning with betrayal. Aminata looked around the room, searching for one face that might show compassion. There was none. She realized then that truth alone was not enough in a place ruled by power and pride. Still, she straightened her back. I will not accept this lie, she said firmly. I have worked honestly. I have done nothing wrong. Her courage shook the room for a brief moment, but it was not enough. Shakira raised her hand, signaling the guards. Throw her out, she ordered, her voice calm and final. The guards grabbed Aminata roughly, dragging her toward the gate. Aminata struggled, not in fear, but in pain. Pain that justice had once again chosen silence over truth. Is innocence ever loud enough to defeat cruelty? At the gate, they pushed her onto the road, her few belongings tossed after her. The doors slammed shut behind her, sealing the lies inside. Aminata stood there, shaking, tears streaming freely now. She had been erased again. Not quietly this time, but violently, cruelly, without mercy. Yet even as her body trembled, her spirit refused to break. As she walked away from the mansion for the second time, Aminata wiped her tears and lifted her head. They could strip her of work, of shelter, of dignity in their eyes, but they could not erase her truth. When lies are believed, The innocent suffer, but truth never truly disappears. The city lights flickered coldly as Aminata stepped onto the empty street, her feet heavy but her heart alight. The mansion faded behind her, a glittering cage of lies and betrayal, and with it went every expectation, every hope she had once carried for Jabari. She had nothing, no home, no money, no ally, but something deeper burned inside her now, something that could not be stolen. I may have lost everything, but I will never lose myself, she thought, feeling a surge of determination coursing through her veins. The wind swept past her, carrying the faint smell of the city and the distant hum of traffic. Each step she took felt like a declaration, a refusal to bow to injustice or silence. Aminata's mind replayed the past, the sacrifices, the betrayal, the humiliation, but she no longer felt crushed by them. Instead, each memory ignited a fire, a resolve to rise stronger, smarter, and unbroken. Was this the moment when despair turns into power? Her journey through the streets was quiet yet deliberate. Every shadow, every unfamiliar face, only reminded her that the world was vast, and yet, she had agency over the path she chose. For years, she had given her heart, her labor, her very life for someone who forgot her worth. But now, she realized her strength had been forged in that sacrifice. She could rebuild, reclaim, and redefine her destiny. The city no longer frightened her. It was a stage waiting for her to step boldly forward. As the first hints of dawn colored the horizon, Aminata paused on a small bridge overlooking the river. She watched the water flow, relentless and unyielding, reflecting the light in 1,000 fractured pieces. Like me, she thought, no matter what tries to sweep me away, I will find my way forward. Her eyes sparkled, not with tears, but with a quiet intensity that promised change, resilience, and revenge yet to come. Aminata's walk away from the mansion was more than an escape. It was a rebirth. The girl who once sacrificed everything without question had transformed into a woman who would fight for justice, reclaim her dignity, and carve her own path in a world that had tried to erase her. This was only the beginning. Even when the world erases you, your inner fire can never be extinguished.